and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today I'm doing a deep dive into the wonders of worm castings. These are worm castings here. I do have a video, a couple more videos on worm castings, including using them and making tea. In this video, I want to just do a deeper dive into how wonderful worm castings are. They are just really amazing superfoods, basically, for your houseplants. I do have worm castings in my Green Gourmet houseplant food, and I'm going to tell you now all the reasons why it is in there, because like I said, they are wonderful, wonderful worm castings. Wonderful is wonderful for your plants. Okay, so first of all, what worm castings are, for anyone who may not know or you aren't sure. Worm castings are an organic fertilizer made by earthworms. The castings, which are also known as vermicompost, are essentially worm poop. Okay, so it's earthworm poop. It is what worms create as they feed on organic matter in the soil, and they leave it behind them as they move along through your soil. So as the worm digests the organic materials it consumes, it refines them as it goes. And during this process, nutrients, including minerals and trace elements, are reduced to their most usable form. So that's one great thing. Castings are particularly high in the big three macronutrients, that NPK you see on your fertilizer bags or bottles, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But they are also high in iron, calcium, sulfur, and humic acid. I talk about the importance of humic acid in another video. So worm castings have a 4 to 5% more nitrogen than your average garden soil, which is great. And they also have more phosphorus, potassium, copper, zinc, and iron than farmyard manure. So that's a really good thing to note. And the great thing to note about all of those nutrients is in worm castings, they come in a slow release form, which is really important, as it means that the castings continue to feed your houseplant soil just like Mother Nature intended. So slowly over time, not this big dump of fertilizer into your plants, which by the way is what chemical fertilizers do. But worm castings, very slow release, even slower release than a lot of other organic fertilizers. The castings and nutrients in the castings are mild, and they won't burn your houseplant roots, as mentioned, like chemical fertilizers do. They are meant to be at the root zone of plants because that's where the worms are. So once again, you are acting as Father and Mother Nature by putting these worm castings in the soil for your plants near their roots. The castings have a neutral pH of 7, which means they won't acidify or create alkalinity in your soil. So they won't mess up the pH of your soil. And there's even more good news about worm castings. They help provide aeration to the soil, which helps with drainage and provides needed air to the roots, as well as boosts water retention. So you don't have to water as often when you use worm castings in your potting soil. Worm compost also introduces beneficial microbes into your soil, including good bacteria and fungi, which helps guarantee the healthiest soil possible. Castings also contain humic acid, which aids plant nutrition absorption. I have a video on how great humic acid is as well. When you plant houseplants from seed, worm compost helps improve germination and seedling growth, as well as promotes flowering and fruiting of plants indoors. It has also been proven to remove heavy metals from soil, and if that's not enough, worm compost curbs certain pests and diseases. This includes root and crown rot and root rot, okay? So all really good things. Castings also help plants fight off spider mites, scale, and mealybugs. And castings can help houseplants become more resistant to hot weather. So if it gets really hot in your house, and also they will help plants if you drought your plant and other stressors. So they will help plants get over whatever you've done to them a little bit faster and a little bit easier. Vermicompost tea, and I have a video on making that, is good to use when a plant is stressed or to prevent stress. So it's also good to use after repotting, which can be stressful. Though worm compost is essentially worm poop, it is completely finished, meaning it's all done, it's all been composted by the worm as within the worm's body. And unlike some other creatures, this manure doesn't smell at all. I like to say that worms are one of the few creatures on the planet that can boast that their you-know-what doesn't stink, and it really doesn't. It smells earthy, nice and earthy, kind of like the forest floor. It's also really pretty, as you can see, and it's just really very attractive, really. So if you put it on top of plants as a mulch, it looks really nice when you do that as well. You can do worm farming to create your own castings, and you can buy it. Either way, worm castings are also a sustainable option for fertilizing your houseplants and keeping them healthy. Worm castings is one of the making worm castings, or the worms making worm castings for you and then you farming them so you can use them, or that they farm them to bag them. That is one of the fastest methods of composting. By vermicomposting and using worm compost, you help the environment by composting waste that would otherwise end up in landfills. If you decide to do worm composting indoors, there are plenty of worm composters that will fit into your home, like this one I'm showing here now. I'll link some worm farms below as well if you decide you want to try out worm farming, which is a lot of fun. Okay, so how to use worm compost. As mentioned, I do talk about it in the other video, but I'm just going to briefly, now that we've talked about how wonderful it is, how the different ways you can use it. There are a variety of options, and I use all of these. I top dress, so put them on top of the soil in a plant. I use it as an amendment when I repot, so I add it to the potting soil. I also mulch with it, meaning I'll put it on the top. It's similar to top dressing. Put it on the top of the soil and then put another mulch on top so it gets sealed in that way. I will insert it with a wooden dowel, and I show that in the other video. So you make holes in the soil and then sprinkle the worm compost in. Or, as a viewer noted recently on that other video, when she top dressed and then she poked the wooden dowel in, then the worm compost automatically went into the soil. So I would do that right after top dressing, do that, and the worm compost will go to near the roots, because you do want it near the roots as it naturally happens out in nature. You can also make a tea that you can pour on. So those are all the great ways that you can use it. Now, one caveat regarding worm composting, and worm castings, I should say. While worm castings are a great choice for taking care of your houseplants, they shouldn't be the only thing you use to nutrify your soil and feed your plants. Because you can't be sure just how many of those nutrients, all the macro and micronutrients, are in the worm compost. So it's best to use other fertilizers in conjunction with your worm castings. Another one that creates a lot of really good green growth and is a natural growth hormone that works really nicely in conjunction with worm castings is alfalfa meal. I do have a video on alfalfa meal, and not surprisingly, I have alfalfa meal in my Green Gourmet houseplant food. So there you go. The wonders of worm castings for houseplants, this really cool superfood for your houseplants. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.